in Surah Al-Ahzab, after he reminds us that the most perfect role model for us is our Prophet ﷺ, he tells us that amongst the believers are men who have been truthful to the pledge that they made to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Amongst the believers, not all the believers. Amongst them have risen to the status of manhood, real men. Men who can carry this religion on their back and stand proudly to support their brothers and sisters who profess La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. Amongst these men are some who had been martyred, and others are waiting their fate. And they had never betrayed that pledge to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They have not wavered, they have not shaken. They remain steadfast in that pledge that they made to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I was told today, when I was asked to do this khutbah, to make it relevant to the young people who have school holidays. Every issue that the Muslims have is relevant to everybody, young and old. And the glaring example that we have is when a 16-year-old Muslim girl is arrested and put in prison for standing up for her family and standing up for her country. And when her 11-year-old cousin picks up a camera and goes around reporting, they are children, just like some of the children here. Children who stand up for the truth. And one of them, her name is Ahed, which means a pledge. Just like the pledge that we made to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The pledge that we will be true Muslims, that we will obey Allah. Her name is a pledge to remind us. A pledge has been arrested. Where is our pledge to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And how do we learn to fulfill our pledges and to be true to the pledge that we made? And the young people in particular, pay attention. It starts with being true to yourself. It starts with being true to yourself. It doesn't matter what everyone around you says. Be truthful and tell the truth even if everybody else is lying. That's not your problem. Your problem is, how will you answer when Allah asks you if you have been truthful? And He knows whether you have or haven't. Be honest. Because Allah is going to question you about your honesty. Be true to your promises. If you give your word, always be true to your word. That is what a Muslim does. Be true to your word, even if it costs you more than you expected. And don't make fun of other people. Do not mock other people. If somebody doesn't have your qualities, your wonderful qualities, then you should be a helper to them. Allah gave you these extra good things so you can help those who don't have them. You can feel sympathy towards them and help them. And if somebody makes fun of you, do not let that get to you. You don't make fun of others, but if they make fun of you, it shows that they are weak, that they are envious and they are jealous, and that they don't understand that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to question them. Why did you make fun of Ahed? Why did you make fun of Muhammad? Why did you make fun of Tawfiq? Why? Are you making fun of him or the one who created him? I made him like that. I made him exactly like that. So are you making fun of him or are you making fun of me? Do not make fun of your brothers and sisters. But be there to help them. Be there to help them no matter what. Be there to help them to be true. And be there to help them do what they need to do in their daily life. My dear brothers, this little girl, after her cousin, an innocent young boy, was shot in the head for no reason by the Israelis, she went outside and she started to hit a heavily armed Israeli soldier, wearing a bulletproof vest, wearing a steel helmet. If you hit that helmet with your hand, you'll hurt your hand. And she punched him in the face, or slapped him in the face, and she kicked him in the leg. That's all she could reach with her foot. And just that, those symbolic actions, made everyone in Israel scared. A little girl terrified them when most of our men are too scared to speak. Where are the men who made a pledge to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to come out and speak? I don't expect you to do anything except speak. Speak. Talk to your friends about what is happening. Try to understand what's happening and talk about it. You say, I have a sister in Palestine who has been arrested for trying to defend her family. I have a sister, a little sister in Palestine. And they want to make an example of her because she hit one of the people who was shooting at her family. Speak, just say words. There's a petition on the internet. It's been there for a couple of weeks and it's only got 55,000 signatures. Are we too scared to even sign our name? To defend the rights of this little girl? Are we too scared to even sign our name? Just look it up, put her name in Google. Petition to support Ahed Tamimi. If that's too difficult, connect with me. You'll find it on my wall, on my Facebook. Just sign the petition and tell your friends about it. She's a 16-year-old girl, she's not a criminal. But a 16-year-old girl who's come to represent what it means to be a man. That girl has shown us what it's like to be a man. At a time when many of us are just couch potatoes. Where many of us just talk, but misdirect. Speak in anger and say things that hurt us instead of things that help us. If this girl had been an Israeli, you'd find every politician in Parliament trying to help her and speak in support of her. But at the moment, the excuse is that Parliament's closed. If she was an Israeli, it wouldn't matter if Parliament was closed. Why? Because none of us is talking to, or very few of us are talking to our local member of Parliament and saying, we want you to make a strong statement. We want you to make sure that this girl is released, is given her freedom. She's a native Palestinian. She is entitled. It is her human right to hit an occupation soldier. It is a basic human right to fight and resist occupation. When your country is under occupation, you have a basic human right that no one can take away from you. She was doing the right thing. She did not do anything illegal. And all I ask you to do is send a letter to your local member of Parliament and sign the petition. Talk about it on social networking, whatever you use, all these different things. Talk about it. Keep the issue alive. We get excited for a few moments and then we forget. Why? Keep the issue alive. This could be your daughter. And I assure you, my dear brothers, that many of the problems that we face in many other countries in the world all go back to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. They all go back to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. One example is the Prime Minister of Israel was criticizing the United Nations for condemning Israeli atrocities against the Palestinian people. He said, look, there's 180 condemnations against Israel, but where are the condemnations in relation to Myanmar? There's only 12 or so. Where are the condemnations in relation to the Assad regime? He's used all these atrocities as an example. The instability in most of our countries as a result of Israeli intervention to keep Israel safe, to have client regimes, to have rulers who will protect Israel before they protect their own people, to have rulers who will sell gas for less than it costs to produce it to Israel, to have rulers who are now making deals with Israel. Most of our problems is because of that conflict. Let's keep talking about it. Keep it alive. I don't want any of you to do anything except use your brain and use your fingers on the keyboard to write letters. And speak rationally and speak with wisdom. Use your wisdom. Talk human rights. My dear brothers, I've said these words and I ask Allah to forgive me and to forgive you. Let's turn to Allah, ask Him for forgiveness and ask Him to give us the strength to do what is right. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن سيدنا وحبيبنا محمدا عبده ورسوله اللهم صل وسلم وبارك عليه وعلى آله وصحبه ومن تبع هداه. My dear brothers, I remind myself first and then I remind you to have taqwa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to always know with certainty that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows every impulse that comes into your mind. He knows every thought that you develop in your head and why you developed it. He can hear every word that you say and He can see everything that you do. Everything. And that is not so strange. At a time when we know that every keystroke is monitored, every keystroke you make on the computer is monitored, but you see so-called safety cameras at almost every corner. If human beings can do that, can monitor your words and actions and keystrokes, then know for sure that your Creator knows every keystroke that you make. And He can see everything that you do. He can hear everything that you say. My dear brothers and sisters, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in Surah Al-Ahzab. Al-Ahzab, of course, is a reference to when a number of tribes allied together against the Muslims and came to attack the Muslims in Medina. And they lay siege to the city of Medina. And there were such overwhelming numbers for the small Muslim community. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala begins this collection of verses, this group of verses, by saying to us we have the best role model in our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. We have the most excellent, the most beautiful role model in our Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And in that frightening sight, with the overwhelming army surrounding your city, and you're worried whether some of the non-Muslim groups will betray you, as they have in the end betrayed the Muslims. You're worried about their overwhelming numbers and their resources. The true believers said, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, He said, when they saw these allies, these confederate tribes, they said, this is what we were promised by Allah and His Messenger. We were promised that if we hold fast to the guidance of Allah and try to save humanity from being enslaved by one another, then of course those who exploit and oppress are going to ally against us. They're going to try and attack us. They said, this is what we were promised. And they said, indeed Allah and His Messenger told us the truth. And this frightening sight only made them more faithful to Allah, only increased their faith. Where many people might run or might join the other side out of fear for their own safety or for an opportunity to make some money, the believers remained firm. This increased their faith. and it increased their submission to Allah. وَمَا زَادَهُمْ إِلَّا إِيمَانًا وَتَسْلِيمًا. It increased their submission to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And at this point, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives them a very, very, very high praise. He said, amongst the believers are men. We use this term very loosely. This is a man, this is a man. But what does it mean to be a man? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, amongst the believers are men. Not all the male Muslims are genuine believers, and not all the believers are true men. In fact, there are some women who have shown stronger traits of manhood than some men. He said, amongst the believers are men, true men, who are truthful to their pledge to Allah. صدقوا ما عاهدوا الله عليه. They were truthful. What is this pledge that they made to Allah? When did they make this pledge? This pledge, you can take it back to when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asked the question, Alastu bi rabbikum? We all said yes. He said, am I not your Lord? Before we were brought into this world, He spoke to us. And we said yes. That's the first pledge. He also took our pledge when we said, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. Entering into Islam is a pledge to submit to Allah and to obey the guidance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is a promise that you make, a solemn promise and a pledge. And these people who were truthful to Allah and faithful, when they could see that they could be killed at any moment, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala praised them as real men who were truthful to their pledge. And He said, some of them have been martyred. Some of them ended up being martyred. And others amongst those true men are waiting their fate. And they are praying that they will meet the same fate. That they will die or be killed while they remain steadfast and faithful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, without shaking, without betraying. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَمَا بَدَّلُوا تَبْدِيلًا. They did not change any of these teachings. They did not change any part of their pledge. They did not try to make excuses. Oh, look, they're too powerful. Maybe we can make friends. Maybe we can get some time. My dear brothers, Imam Tabari explains this, being men and being truthful to this pledge. He said they were patient in adversity. They were patient when harm was coming to them. They were patient in the middle of battle. They were very patient. And, my dear brothers, how do we reach this status of men? It's not enough to be a male. How do you reach this status of men? To be unwavering. To be true to your pledge to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It starts by conditioning yourself. Look after yourself first. Make sure that you speak the truth even when others lie to you. That you are truthful because you know Allah wants you to be truthful. So it doesn't matter how many lies other people tell to you or about you, you'll remain truthful. Make sure that you obey Allah and you obey His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Not only in your actions, not only in your 5 daily prayers, but through your work as well. Through your conduct with your wife and your children or your brothers and your sisters. That your words and your actions are in obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That you are true to your word and true to your promise no matter who you give that word to. If you gave your word, even if you in your mind you were joking, people don't know that you're joking. You don't want to be listed as somebody who doesn't keep his word. The record of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the most important record. You want to be someone who is truthful to your word. Like our Prophet ﷺ, even his most ardent enemies used to refer to him as the honest and trustworthy person. Be faithful even if other people betray you. No matter how many people betray you, always be faithful yourself. Those people who betrayed you, they betrayed themselves first. Traitors betray themselves before they betray anybody else. Imagine living with themselves, knowing that they are traitors, that they betrayed the trust of somebody who trusted them. They fell from grace before they let you down. They let themselves down before they let you down. And they betrayed Allah and His Messenger when they failed to be faithful to their promise and to their word and to their pledge. My dear brothers and sisters, I speak and I feel ashamed myself. I speak about the traits of manhood and I feel a sense of shame when I see a little girl, a teenage girl, 16 years of age, standing up to the mighty military machine and slapping a heavily armed soldier in the face. I feel a sense of shame when that little girl has taught me to be a man. When I say I, we should all feel that sense of shame. Does any of you think about this girl? Maybe most of us thought about her on the first day when it was reported on the news. And then we forgot. Maybe some of us thought she's not wearing a scarf and we forgot. My dear brothers and sisters, this little girl has shaken the entire Israeli establishment. You have ministers in government speaking as if they are facing their mortal enemy, wanting to throw the book at her, wanting to make an example of her, arresting other members of her family, closing down her entire town. They are so frightened of this little girl who is teaching us how to be men. She didn't use a gun or a knife. She didn't kill anybody. She didn't blow herself up. She slapped a heavily armed soldier. And she knew the risks she was taking. How many of us would sell out for personal safety or thinking for the safety of our family or some worldly position? Or maybe this person will give us a job or throw us some crumbs, or out of cowardice. My dear brothers and sisters, I swear to you by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I swear to you by Allah that this world is going to end, that our life in this world is not going to last forever. And the life in this world is really, really not worth your life in the akhirah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us in the Quran, He said this worldly life is nothing but some amusement and play. The true life, every aspect of the true life is in the akhirah. Ad-Darul Akhirah, that is where you have the true life. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala didn't just say hayat over there. For the worldly life He said hayat, life. For the akhirah He said al-hayawan, which, as if you could imagine yourself living several lives concurrently. Every aspect of your life is so full and so perfect. That is the akhirah. The play and the amusement in this world, though, are not for us. If we want the dar al-akhirah, we leave this play and amusement and we take this life seriously. We talk so much about Islam liberating us, but we do very little to bring this liberation to the others who are engrossed in the embellishment of this worldly life. My dear brothers, when I think about this little girl and the lessons that she taught us, And she's sitting in the prison. And she's going to face a military court. A military court. With an almost 100% rate of conviction. Some Israelis are calling for her to be taken to a dark place and raped. Some, even officials, are calling for her to be imprisoned for life. Where are we? What are we doing? What are we doing? One of our brothers put a petition on the internet. Has it reached 60,000 signatures yet? 2 billion Muslims. Have we got 60,000 signatures? Let's say some don't have access to the internet. Maybe in this whole wide world, maybe 10% don't have access to the internet of the Muslim community. Only about 60,000 signatures in 3 weeks. 19th of December, this little girl was arrested. Today is the 19th of January. This is a month. They refuse to give her bail. They are so frightened of a little girl. The Israeli military machine that terrifies everyone are so frightened of a little girl. But what are we doing? Where are the Muslim leadership to speak about this girl? Okay, let's say many of them have betrayed us. Where are the leaders of the Muslim organizations in our country? What representations have they made? I'll take it a step further. What have you done? What have you done to go to these leaders and say, show me what you are doing for this sister who is teaching us to be men? How many of you go to your local mosque and say, I want to speak to the president or the secretary. I want to see the letter that you sent to the Minister for Foreign Affairs. I want to see the protest that you registered. I want to see, is your name on that petition? What are you afraid of? What are you afraid of? Our enemies make noise to get what they want. We're asking for peaceful protest by legitimate means. The tools that you have that are perfectly legal. And my dear brothers and sisters, what this little girl did is perfectly legal. Her land, her town in the West Bank is under occupation. And it's a basic human right that nobody can take away from you. That you are allowed to fight the occupation. You have the right to fight, to resist and to fight the occupiers of your country. You have a basic human right that is recognized all over the world. The only people who would deny you that right are the occupiers. We celebrate those who resisted occupation everywhere once the occupation ends. Whilst it's on, we have to support our brothers and sisters who are being oppressed before that oppression comes to us. And my dear brothers and sisters, when we talk about Palestine, I'm not from Palestine. I'm from Lebanon, I'm not from Palestine. So I'm not talking about close blood family relatives. But they are more my family than my real biological brothers and sisters. They are more my family. That little girl is my teacher and my sister and my daughter. And that's what every one of us should feel. That little girl is teaching me how to be a man. She is my little sister. She is my daughter. When we see our daughters worried about the colour of their hair, or the polish on their fingers, or the hue of their lipstick, or lip gloss, or whatever name they wish to call it, or the size of their extension eyelashes, we see a little girl teaching us how to be men. May Allah bless that girl and bless the womb that bore her, that gave birth to her, and bless her family. What are we doing to remind each other about what is happening to that little girl? Are we talking about her with our friends? If this little girl had been Christian or Jewish, the world would not stop talking about her until she's released. She would be treated like a hero. Because there would be people who show that they care for her. Do we care? All I ask of you is to write a letter to your Minister for Foreign Affairs. Not an email, a letter. Because by law they have to reply to a letter. Keep talking about her on social media and in different places. Keep the issue alive. And talk to your community leaders. And if they don't respond and if they don't make representations, agitate to make sure that they are replaced at the next election. We don't want men in skirts on the top of our community leadership. Men who worry about feathering their own nests instead of looking after the poor and needy and the oppressed. You can call them men in skirts if they don't show the courage. Because this little girl shows that she's more of a man than many people in our community. My dear brothers and sisters, I say these words and I ask Allah to forgive you and to forgive me. Let's turn to Allah seeking His forgiveness. He is the most forgiving, the most merciful. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن سيدنا وحبيبنا محمدا عبده ورسوله اللهم صل وسلم وبارك عليه وعلى آله وصحبه ومن تبع هداه. My dear brothers, I could continue talking about this issue for a long time, but I know that some of you have to go back to work. If you don't feel confident to write a letter yourself, write to me and I'll give you a sample that you can sign and send in the mail. Stamps cost $1 these days. Put it in an envelope, put a stamp on it and send it. Let this dollar vouch for you in the akhirah that you did something to support our little sister. My dear brothers, today we have guests with us who again need your help. I know that we are all working class people and we struggle to make a living. And we have many expenses. We all have many expenses. But today, my dear brothers, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, subhanahu wa bihamdih, has sent to you brothers who need your help.